So about 18 years ago now, in my parish, where I was rector outside of Boston, I found myself early on in a deep vat of hot water. You see, for generations, the children of St. John's had processed the three magi down the aisle on the feast of the Epiphany. As it turns out, this incredibly important tradition was news to me, and no one in the church had apprised me of it. So that year, the kings remained on the radiator in the back of the church. It is interesting how church communications work and don't work sometimes. Suffice it to say, I never made that mistake ever again. Still, there was something sweet about that devotion. So sweet that I thought we would try it out this year at Christ Holy Trinity. So down they came, our three wise men made of plaster of Paris. We processed them from the back shelf to their rightful place at the manger. One last rodeo before we wrap the whole thing up in tissue paper and shove it in the attic. But earlier in the week, as I contemplated this feast, which, by the way, is one of my favorite of the church year, I took them in my hand, these three figurines, and I looked them over carefully. And I wondered, who are you? Who are you? Are you kings? Are you astrologers? Matthew calls you wise men. Are they oil barons with crazy money and eccentric hobbies? They journey from the east, that's all we know, but from where? From Persia or Babylon or Assyria? What roads did they travel? How long did it take them to get there? Were there really only three? I mean, there's really not a number assigned. There could have been 4 or 14 or 40, an entourage perhaps. And here's the funny thing, the nativity scenes that we have in our homes and here in church, they all show everything happening all at the same time. But we know that the shepherds left and the angels left. So how old really was Jesus by the time the three magi arrive on the scene? I bet you they turned heads as they ambled into town astride their camels. So you see, there are so many open questions about this feast, about these figures at the heart of this feast. Theologians have been debating the Epiphany for years. Try as you might, you will not find lots of answers in the halls of the academy, and no profound insights from the archaeological world either. But for me, that's the gift of the Epiphany, that we get to set aside our normal operations of logic, our need to control, our need to have it all figured out, and we can just rest in the mystery and the wonder of the feast. How wonderful it can be from time to time not have to get places on our own steam, but to be swept up into something that is deeper and broader and more wonderful than we can imagine. For this star in this feast manifests itself, God's divine agenda. So let us go with our hearts and be drawn into the light that this Bethlehem star reveals. It is, after all, a feast that begins with a star that is like no other star. And it has captured the imagination of these figures. So much so that they follow it across shifting desert sands in search of a newborn king. And at long last, their journey leads them to Jerusalem, to the city of David, to the city of kings. This is the obvious place. We go to Jerusalem. We go to the palace. We go find the guy in charge. And there they find Herod, and they sit at their table. And they are not like Herod. They are from somewhere else. They are other. They are exotic. But they are important, and they are wealthy, so they fit in here. However, there is something about Herod. He's, a little creepy, they think. And there's something about this place that just somehow, well, though it feels comfortable, it is oddly wrong. It is the wrong place, the wrong king, the wrong table, the wrong world. And so their longing and their searching sets them yet on another path, another road that leads to a most unexpected place, to nothing little backwater town in the empire called Bethlehem. It leads them to another world where a functionally enslaved people live under the threat of a totalitarian regime. A mandate from Caesar had whipped them all up into a frenzy, found them scurrying all over the place to be registered. Why? To raise taxes. Why? To grow the strength of the empire, to build aqueducts, to build roads, to grow the army, to expand. And Mary and Joseph and their friends, their kin, their neighbors are all swept up in it all. And they have found their way to Bethlehem, where Mary gives birth to a baby in a barn. That is the most logical part of the story, friends, because when you have nothing, a barn is where you give birth. The shepherds and the angels have come and they have gone, and down the road come these exotic, strange figures who discover in this harsh world a most beautiful light shining, piercing through the cracks of broken lives. And they enter the place where a little child rests. And then this incredible thing happens, really, when you think about it. These important people, they kneel and they bear gifts, exotic, costly gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There is no instance in the ancient world in which something like this happens. This never happens. The reverse happens all the time, right? But this, kings paying homage to a baby, bringing costly and rare gifts. The pyramid is flipped. It is turned on its apex. The God whom Mary praises in her Magnificat has lifted up everyone, has turned the world upside down. And in this moment, a tiny baby is up on top where he can shine and manifest love to a hurting world, to every tribe and nation. Good news of another kingdom revealed for the whole world. And now, once you've been to the manger, there's no going home the way you came. Call it a conversion of heart, call it an epiphany, call it a revelation, call it a profound divine insight. Whatever this knowing is, they cannot go back to Herod. They cannot go back the way they came. And there is no star to follow. So the only map they have to guide them home is the love they have received in this child and this bold assertion that in God's kingdom, everyone counts. Renaissance artists were obsessed with the Feast of the Epiphany. It's a very famous motif in the Renaissance world. And pretty much all the masters painted the scene of the Magi taking their place in the Nativity. Botticelli, Ghirlandaio, Raphael, Fra Filippo Lippi, etc. And they're all massive and stunning. However, the work that most captures my heart is this one here by Leonardo da Vinci, The Adoration of the Magi. Now, this isn't the real one. This is a Kinko's reproduction. But Da Vinci created this work when he was in his early 20s, and he never finished it. And yet it is hung in the Uffizi since the 1600s as one of the most important objects of art. And it is quite unlike our nativity scene over yonder. Etched in the background is a crumbling city with soldiers on horseback peering through arches. What is this ancient ruin? Could this be Herod's palace? Could this be Rome? What is corroding and falling away against the light of this newborn king? The foreground features the expected trio from the east and Mary holding the infant Jesus. We don't know where Joseph is. He probably went out for milk, but he's not there. But what I do find intriguing are the 30 or so figures that flood the middle ground. People of all ages, sizes, character, gender, all deeply expressive and interacting with each other, filled with emotion and movement, all dappled by the light that comes from this child at the center. And I look at them and I wonder, who are these people? What are their stories? What is the world that they inhabit look like? What dusty roads have they traveled that have brought them to this scene? Well, they just might be every seeking soul of every generation that has longed for the light and hope that this child brings. They may well be you and me. Artists abandon more canvases than they complete. Still, for me, it is the incompleteness of this work that makes it so compelling. It is as though the work is still in progress, which it is, friends. The work of Epiphany, the scene is still in progress. The light that the star reveals is still making its way more and more and more into our hearts, into our lives, and into our world. We love the star and its beauty bright, but in truth, there is no more star, folks. It came and went. There is only the light that shines in the hearts and actions of those who have been to the manger and whose lives have been forever changed. Amen.